Russia's pressure in western Ukraine has been relieved, but the Russian army is still attacking the Donbas area, and the diversion in Russia's grand plan forces it to progress by accomplishing smaller goals. The initial days of the occupation in Eastern Europe were fraught with anxiety. NATO sent tens of thousands of troops to the Eastern European bloc, establishing a safe corridor in the region. The Russian threat appeared to be quite apparent, and Putin appeared to have no intention of backing down. Following his capture of Kiev, NATO built a security corridor that separated Europe from Russia as well as Belarus from Russia. The greatest military buildup occurred in Poland, which shares a wide border with both Belarus and Ukraine, and was viewed as Russia's next target after Ukraine. Because of Kaliningrad, Poland also has a border with Russia. The Polish army, NATO's ninth greatest military force, presently has 152,500 soldiers. This massive military force is made up of 32,500 paramilitaries, with the remaining 100,000 being active military soldiers. At the same time, 1,500 British and Romanian forces are stationed in Poland. The number of active U.S. forces in the region was estimated as 12,500. This was confirmed yesterday by the U.S. ambassador to Poland. According to the most recent data, roughly 170,000 NATO personnel, including the Polish army and allied NATO forces, are stationed in Poland. This is more troops than Russia is now using to attack Ukraine. In truth, Ukraine is reported to have 125,000 military men. As a result, we may speak about a larger number than the UK as a defense force. According to Ukrainian President Zelenski, 700,000 people are fighting in Ukraine. This demonstrated that those qualified for military duty in Ukraine and militia organizations in the region were actively participating in the conflict. In Poland, more than 15 million people are now eligible for military duty. This is an extremely significant statistic that represents more than 40% of the Polish population. At the same time, NATO is moving a significant amount of military equipment to the region. From the time it obtains data that Russia would launch an invasion of Ukraine, hundreds of NATO tanks and heavy armaments, as well as the USA F-22 Raptor fighter and F-35 fleet, have been stationed in Poland. Furthermore, the arrival of M1A2 Abrams tanks from the United States was asked to be expedited so that Poland could send additional Soviet tanks to Ukraine and boost its own defense force with the newest technology in USM-1A2 heavy warfare. According to the U.S. ambassador to Poland, Putin's invasion of Ukraine unified Europe and developed strong connections within NATO. When asked about the U.S. presence in Poland, Brzezinski, the U.S. ambassador to Poland, stated that there are 12,500 U.S. troops in Poland. He also added that now they have F-35s, Patriot systems from a huge tank transfer, to Poland that the Poles recently acquired and were moving through Abrams tanks, which are the finest in class for ground combat. According to Brzezinski, Poland is presently at the vanguard of NATO when it comes to the Ukraine issue. Therefore, it bears the heavy cost, both in terms of security and humanitarian efforts for refugees, despite Poland's sour ties with the U.S. Brzezinski has previously remarked that the Russian invasion pushed the United States and Poland closer together, and that there is little question that this crisis would inevitably lead to some sort of collaboration given the magnitude of the issue. There is no doubt about that. The United States has traditionally had a positive relationship with Poland. We have both shared and divergent interests. It is similar to every other country's relationship with America, but this crisis has generated a unity of purpose and a single concept of challenge between America, Poland, and other European countries. That's why we're plainly collaborating with Ukraine's next-door neighbor, Poland, and as such, it's in the catnip seat of tolerating Ukrainians and attempting to help the Ukrainian military effort. As a result, our collaboration is expanding rapidly. At the same time, the accession of Sweden and Finland to NATO would undoubtedly boost the security of Poland and the Baltic states after Russia's activities. The two Baltic republics, which have traditionally been neutral, have filed formal applications to NATO. These two nations clearly have the power to influence regional balances. Sweden's air force and highly capable navy will help NATO. It will make the Baltic Sea significantly safer and bring the Baltic states closer together. As a result, Sweden's choice will have a significantly lesser negative impact on Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. Denmark and Norway are NATO members and oppose any Scandinavian alliance. Because of these actions, there was a considerable popular backlash against NATO in Sweden, although this backlash began the day Finland announced its desire to join NATO. Immediately after, these views began to shift. Putin's effort to attack Ukraine for no apparent cause effectively overturned the decision and altered popular perception. Both nations are now convinced that NATO is essential. Sweden has already strengthened links with numerous European Union member states in recent years and NATO. Finland and Sweden, too, have begun attending NATO meetings. At the same time, Sweden, along with other NATO members, dispatched soldiers to Afghanistan and Libya. In other words, even though these two nations were not NATO members, their connection was steadily growing. For Poland's security, the German, American, and Polish soldiers engaged in a real-time firing practice. This exercise was recently developed to strengthen NATO allies and improve readiness by enhancing interoperability and integrating ground and air components with defense capabilities. The drill took place near Drosko-Pomorsky, Poland. Lieutenant Colonel Charles Buys, commander of the United States Army's 1st Battalion, 68th Armored Regiment, 3rd Armored Brigade Combat Team, 4th Infantry Division, stated in a statement that the exercise allowed them to train alongside their allies. This was a learning experience for the majority of the order, not just for us, but also for Polish and German soldiers. It showed us where our limits are and how we can use all of our relevant skills to compensate for our flaws, resulting in a stronger, more successful, and unified team. Major General Gary Kurt Sauls, who was also assigned as the commanding sergeant of the 4th Infantry Division, stated why intricate scenarios were created during these drills. At the end of the day, Major General Kurtzel stated, NATO is a massive friendly force that will meet when called upon by many different states, delivering crucial fighting capabilities to a multinational force. At the multinational level, there will also be access and operational control of other nations under a high headquarters outside the United States. Executing an exercise that delivers, wins, and uses them tactically with decisive action is vital to the mission's ultimate success. Multinational forces were required to work in Poland. An attempt was undertaken to scare potential attackers in light of the latest Russian threat. It is said that all stages of the drill were completed satisfactorily. Oleg Morozov, a member of the Russian State Duma, has made some quite severe comments. These words clearly indicate Poland being the second point of occupation after Ukraine, implying that Poland is under attack from Russia. Morozov also demonstrates how reasonable Poland's fears are. This might be the major reason Poland aided Ukraine from the beginning of the war and established a shipping route through its territory. We hope that the measures in the Baltics and Eastern Europe are simply preventive, and that a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine, including the protection of Ukraine's territorial integrity and the ability to live a healthy, happy, and peaceful life, is signed as soon as possible. Also, President Zelenski stated that the Russian army committed barbarous blows on Ukraine's Sumy region with rockets and mortars, claiming that 1 person was killed and 7 were injured. According to Zelensky, such assaults will serve as a reminder to the world that Russia must be formally designated as a terrorist state.